I haven't been able to get the Mario and Luigi series out of my head for several weeks now. Ever since that fateful Nintendo Direct day where Mario and Luigi Brothership cold opened the presentation, it's been taking over my brain more than I'd like to admit.
Get out of me! Nobody's messing with your head! Get out of me! Nobody's messing with your head, man! Nobody's messing with your head!
Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga was my first RPG experience outside of Pokemon. While all the cool kids had moved on to playing Pokemon Emerald, I was still vibing on Superstar Saga. Totally not because I was stuck on Cackletta Soul for months and only leveled up my HP stat through the entire playthrough. Only a simpleton would do that. Outside of these games adding a lot more characterization to both the Mario Brothers, Bowser, Peach, and many other characters alike, it had a turn-based combat system similar to Paper Mario and Super Mario RPGs, one that encouraged using some of the most fun and creative attacks in any Mario game in my opinion, the Bros attacks, renamed special attacks in later games. It always felt so satisfying pulling these moves off. They felt like a perfect combination of silly and cool. Initially I was just going to rank the Bros attacks from each game, then realized that's way too easy, because later Mario and Luigi installments added more unique moves outside of ones that just involved Mario and Luigi. Bowser had his own and inside story, Dream Team added the Luiginary Dream World attacks, and Paper Jam had the trio attacks. So that's what we're doing today, ranking every single special attack from the Mario and Luigi series. By the way, this ranking is stemmed from my personal enjoyment from using the attacks rather than one solely based on power. Problem with doing one based on power for these games is there's several that have infinite combos that have the potential to beat bosses absurdly quickly. Partners in Time has 4 of them. But trust me, despite the name of this channel, I'm not going to put all the Luiginary attacks at the top of the list. That would be unethical and dishonest. Dream Team and the remake of Bowser's Inside Story added unique finishing moves to their giant fights that the game forces the players to use in order to overcome the bosses in a more grandiose fashion. They're kind of cool visually, but there isn't really any strategy involving it because you can only use it once at the end of these fights and you have to. The Bowser's Inside Story finishing move is the most plain of them since it's just a more powerful punch. Though Finishing Bros and Star Driver from Dream Team take things up a notch by having Mario ride on these giant stars while maneuvering with the 3DS motion controls. Not the craziest thing in the world, but it adds a bit more of a need to be precise rather than just tapping the screen over and over. Star Driver's the best of the 3 for me though, despite being one-time only use, it just looks so epic. Mario's so tiny on the star, and it's all to defeat Giant Bowser in the Dream World. It's awesome conclusion to the Dream Team's giant fights. Although I still consider Smash Egg a cool attack, it's gotta be my least favorite standard Bros attack in the series. It's very plain set of movements and animations where the Bros just bicycle kick an egg back and forth until the egg breaks. Getting an extra item from the egg is cool, but there's almost no scenario where I'd want to use this Bros attack over any other one unless I just felt like gambling for no reason. Items aren't very difficult to pick up naturally in that game to begin with. Not bad, just not super great to me. Maybe it's a hot take putting it this low, but Drill Stomp was a little too on the gimmicky side for me. You can only use it once every few turns due to Mario getting tired, and it's a pretty simple attack at that. Just multiple spin jumps in succession while you spin the stylus clockwise or counterclockwise. Looks cool for sure, and I understand why it's not spammable because it would take away from the gimmickiness of the giant fights. That's kind of their whole thing, but it is what it is. While Cannonballer was fun to use in the earlier stages of Partners in Time, it became very outclassed later on. Seeing all the Bros getting shot out of a cannon is cool and all, but the timing for this attack is extremely forgiving when you can see the order of the Bros waiting in midair for quite a while. The cosmetic and unique animations for these moves are things I value greatly, and unfortunately Cannonballers doesn't really stand out in that department too much. Main reason that's got the slight edge over Drill Stomp for me is because you can use it more freely. Not a ton for me to say about Trampoline since it's incredibly similar to the way Cannonballers functions, only you can do the inputs for each brother as many times as you want until you fail. It's one of the infinites, which can be difficult because it gets faster and faster. The little backflips the brothers do whenever they hop back on looks cool, as well as the enemies having a bit of a squished effect on their models whenever they get jumped on. It's silly, and I like that. Part of me was contemplating on putting Copy Flowers a little bit higher on this list at first, but the way it works is almost identical to the Trampoline, just more models of the Bros on the screen with quicker timing, so it wouldn't make much sense to not have these two closer. I think I just like doing the inputs over and over a bit more as opposed to the Trampolines requiring more build-up at the start. I promise I'm not a Partners in Time hater, by the way. The Bros attacks in that game are just lacking a bit in my eyes compared to the others. I just felt like clearing that up because some folks out there were labeling me as a Super Paper Mario hater after I did my boss ranking video for those games, and with that, couldn't be further from the truth. Just stop attacking me. I feel like I'm going to get shit for this one because it's an objectively great attack against late game Bowser's Inside Story bosses, but the thing about magic windows, just like the previous points I made, it's very similar to both Copy Flowers and Trampoline in terms of execution. There was the idea to have this Bros attack a bit higher on the list at first too, but you know, the main reason it's getting the edge over Trampoline and Copy Flowers is because of the extra cosmetic effect of the magic windows actually being there, as well as the attack sometimes requiring an input for both A and B to be pushed at the same time, something that hadn't really been done before with any other special attack at this point in time. It's a fun attack all around and very strong. A jump helmet's a weird one, a very simple Bros attack on paper, but pulling it off properly feels fun. Bowser's Inside Story was the first Mario and Luigi game that required you to do inputs outside of just button presses for special attacks in general. Jump helmet being being the first one for the brothers in particular. So despite it being less of an intense minigame of sorts like Copy Flowers, Trampoline, and Magic Window, I like Jump Helmet a little bit more due to the Luigi motion involved. Also, this little orange shell helmet is just super silly, I love it. The shell-based special attack sort of became the starting staple special attack from Partners in Time onward. Brothership has confirmed bringing this attack back too, so that further solidifies the fact that the devs have a strong attachment to this move. Part of me kind of feels bad for putting them on the lower side due to them being more iconic than others. It's just the attack in itself is relatively basic. Sure, that's probably the point, but still. Bowser's Inside Story green shell for the bros is the least exciting for me, since it's just the boys kicking the shell back and forth with no kind of extra flair to it. Partners in Time amps things up a bit by having the babies ride the shells whenever you kick them. Little guys can do the cute spins for extra damage if you time it right too. Bowser's Koopa Core attack falls into this category as well, and because it's Bowser doing the work here, I gotta give it a bit of an extra edge over the previous. His is probably the hardest one to pull off consistently too, because it's all tap and drag controls. The shells from Dream Team and Paper Jam take the cake for me overall though. The 3D camera change and the epic finisher the bros do to make this attack look so much more devastating than before, it's great. And I'm glad Brothership seems to be taking this a step further by adding a small pre-rendered cutscene for Mario and Luigi's finishing shell attacks. The flowers are another set of bros attacks that have become a staple since Partners in Time. The flowers were typically more fun for me than the shells because it was one big mashing game. Mashing games were usually most of my favorite Mario Party minigames because of its simple nature on paper, but also replayability to see if I could continue to one-up myself or my peers with faster mashing. Dream Team's version of the Fire Flower in particular was probably my least favorite. Like, yeah, I guess there was a bit more skill involved to pull this one off because you could only mash a bit at the end as opposed to the entire time. Ice Flower from Partners in Time is my favorite from the bunch because it was not only unique to that game, but had the secondary effect of lowering enemy stats. Understandable why they didn't bring it back since the Fire Flower has more seniority than Ice. Even still, it'd be cool to see it used more in Mario games in general. And maybe Brothership will bring it back, but I'm not necessarily expecting them to. Pocket Jumps is just hilarious to me. Despite being standard jumping focused like a lot of the other Partners in Time bros attacks, I just like how it's one of the only attacks in the entire series that has the bros involving an enemy. Later on, it can be tough to pull off the inputs because these guys will just run across the screen super fast. The input combos are constantly mixing and matching too, like sometimes Luigi will jump and Baby Mario will have to hammer, sometimes Mario will jump and Baby Luigi will have to hammer, stuff like that. The icing on the cake being whenever the chomp catches you, it and the bros would jump towards the screen while doing a unique damage animation. It would have been cool to experience this on the 3DS so it looks like they're actually jumping at you, but oh well. Despite mixed flowers also being pretty similar to the regular fire and ice flowers in terms of what you need to do for inputs, it's the fact that this attack just feels more satisfying to use because of how big the ball of fire can get. I just love that massive AoE damage explosion all at once after it's finished. It's like you're dropping a miniature version of the sun onto your enemy. This bros attack was my, and I'm sure many others' best friend during the Elder Princess Shroom's second half. Mixed flowers make that fight so much less of a headache to deal with the various parts of her body. I think what I like about Bob-omb Blitz the most is despite how simple it is to just clump up a bunch of Bob-ombs together, there's a ton of variations you can do with these setups. You clump them together, have them in a straight line, spread them out in different chunks to attack multiple enemies instead of just one. It's a fun attack that I probably would have had a bit higher on this list if it was more appealing visually. The Bob-ombs just kind of run straight forward after you set them up and explode. This is kind of their thing, but yeah, if Bowser was doing more hands-on work on his end, it could have been a bit cooler for me. Sometimes memorization tests in games can either be some of my favorite things or least favorite things. To this day, I couldn't properly remember the path pattern in Origami King's Fire Elemental Temple first try. Spin Pipe, on the other hand, was one that I enjoyed quite a lot. It's simple A or B inputs, but because the pipe is constantly rotating in an unorthodox manner that speeds up after each use, it becomes increasingly difficult to actually get your proper inputs off. Even after the first couple spins, it starts going pretty damn fast. But if you're able to do it, you can get off some pretty solid damage. High risk, high reward attacks can be very thrilling under the right circumstances, and Spin Pipe is definitely one of the thrilling ones. I've always wanted to launch Bowser's shell at someone at super speed. Shy Guy Squad is so adorable. These silly guys just push Bowser's rotating shell further and further back in a slingshot, with the further you go, the more damage you'll deal. As stupid as this sounds, the main reason I have these guys on the higher spot than the others is because of the little noises they make each time Bowser gets pushed further back. Shy Guys will have my favorite sounding voices from Bowser's Army until further notice. Sling Sniper is pretty similar to Shy Guy Squad, but it takes things to a more extreme level. This time Luigi's the one inside the slingshot, and he's pushed way further back from the enemy than Bowser is. Using the tilt controls on the 3DS can be a little bit wonky for this attack, but I just love the aim marker that's put on screen to make things feel like it's an actual snipe shot being taken, ending the attack with a neat slow motion effect once Luigi makes contact with the enemy. That's a big thing I love about both Dream Team and Paper Jam. Those games did incredible jobs jobs of making the special attacks feel more impactful than ever before. Even the ones that don't do a ton of damage still feel like they do a lot. Putting Swing Bros here as the first for the Superstar Saga special attacks, third attack on the list in a row where somebody's getting thrown at an enemy at top speed. Original Superstar Saga Swing Bros was cool and all, with the advanced version having that extra perk of getting the enemies to drop coins, clothing, or badges. The 3DS remake is a bigger reason why I don't have this attack lower, because it added that extra animation of the brothers doing a drill attack formation for the advanced. Absolutely adore the spark effects on the outside for this one. It's like the game telling you these guys are spinning with so much speed and force that sparks are being created as a result of said force. It's great stuff. On the topic of drilling, the drill shell follows a similar style to Advanced Swing Bros. Sparks flying upon impact, all that's good stuff, only it's Luigi doing all the grunt work while wearing a spiked helmet. It appears I've already been caught in my lie to not show too much bias towards Luigi. Please don't call my mother. Splash Bros and Bounce Bros, the original two Bros attacks, will always hold a special place in my heart. Sometimes simple is best. This isn't necessarily related to the Bros attacks itself, but something I really admired with most of Superstar Saga's Bros attacks is the way they came naturally on your adventure. Like whenever you learn a new way to interact with the overworld environments, you unlock a new set of Bros attacks by default. Superstar Saga was the only game that really did that, so I'm hoping Brothership can bring that concept back too, because I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I feel like having these two share a spot is fine, considering the base versions of the move work borderline identically, just with the inputs inverted. The advanced forms, I'd probably give Bounce Bros the slight edge because of how it can go for multiple targets at once. The little spin drill Mario does with Advanced Splash still looks great too. Drop Chopper is awesome. We're almost getting close to the pinnacle of drill jumping formation special attacks. I think one of the reasons I hold it dear is because it was one of the first brand new attacks shown from trailer footage leading up to Dream Team's release. It's one of the few attacks where I like how it slows things down a bit to let you choose exactly who you want to pulverize, because the more precise you are, the more damage it'll do. Plus, even if you're not dead on, the damage done will create a giant shockwave that'll still damage other grounded enemies / parts of grounded enemies. I'm glad this one was one of the few attacks that got carried over into Paper Jam. Technically, I misspoke a bit earlier in the video because Cyclone Bros was actually the first Bros attack that used the D-pad for inputs, but it's only doable if there's multiple targets on the field. As a young kid who went through a bit of a Beyblade phase when this game came out, seeing how Cyclone Bros felt in like an indirect nod to the Beyblade franchise was really cool to me. It's got a bit of mashing at the start too, so that's an instant plus. The advanced version is a relatively basic follow-up where Luigi just slams his hammer down extra hard, but it's one of the only attacks in the game that can add a secondary effect of dizziness. I do like the way the original version looks more than the remakes, to be honest. That's the weird thing about Superstar Saga's remake with the Bros attacks. Some of them look better to me, but some of them don't look as good as the original, but I'll get more into that later. Yoo-Hoo Cannon's another nice little memory game, but unlike Spin Pipe, there's multiple Mario and Luigis inside each barrel that will hide inside after a few seconds of waving at you. Oh, look at how happy these little guys are. It'll be a different variation of the Bros too, so you gotta have a relatively quick memory to make sure you can get off the correct inputs when each individual barrel goes off. Though the placements for the Bros are mostly forgiving because there's been times where all the Luigi clones will be on the top half and all the Mario ones will be on the bottom. It kind of just depends on how the game's RNG wants to treat you in that moment. But I kind of like that. Sometimes it'll be really easy, while others it'll be a bit of a challenge. Adds a nice sense of variety despite the attack being pretty straightforward. Oof, it physically pains me to not have Luiginary Stack higher, but I gotta be fair here. The Luiginary Stack, while great, is the least exciting of the Luiginary attacks for me. Still a great one, and I like how it's not just needing to time the B presses correctly, but needing to use the circle pad to make sure all the little Luigis are lined up as best as possible for the maximum damage output. Finishing it off with an incredibly Luigi-powered jump, leaving some stray Luigis to fall sideways and Mario get his licks in too. If this move had a little bit more spice to it and better AoE damage output, it'd probably be a bit higher on the list, but I'm still content with it being here. I don't know why, but getting the timing down for Bomb Derby took longer than it probably should have when I first played through Dream Team, but once I got the hang of it, it felt so satisfying to use. It's like a bit of a rhythm game to keep things going. The design of the bombs themselves, as far as I'm aware, are completely unique to this special attack as well. The devs could have easily just made these normal bombs or something, so I appreciate when a little bit of extra work is put into the visuals to make attacks stand out more in a sense. Another good choice special attack to return in Paper Jam. Very fun. Super Bouncer is definitely one of the sillier special attacks in the Mario and Luigi series. It reminds me a lot of Trampoline in concept, only it's just Luigi going to incredibly high heights by himself while Mario thrusts him back upwards after each successful hit. This attack is another one that utilizes the D-pad as well and relies on your quick thinking, because you gotta make sure Luigi is rotated at the top of the ball each time to get it to work, and you gotta still time your B presses. I just love the way he clings onto this thing for dear life. It reminds me of how baby possums ride on their mother's back. Cannonball Chuck is a really fun one. Despite being only one motion with no repeats like Super Bouncer, it's more satisfying to use in my opinion, because again, the modern games just make these attacks feel more intense to pull off. I really like the idea of Luigi being physically strong enough to control the momentum perfectly of a cannonball 5 times the size, and there he goes. Oh good, he's alright. Bye-bye cannon is essentially Yoo-hoo cannon, but better. Shooting the bros directly at the enemies? No, that's too easy. These guys fly across the entire island before landing on the enemy of your choosing. You still gotta remember the order of the clone bros in a quick manner because they fly off the screen pretty fast. The finisher for this move is amazing as well. All the clones of the bros stack on top of each other in the reverse order that they were shot out of the cannon. Spin jumping in succession and the little pose that the last one does in slow motion. It's so adorable. The very first special attack for Bowser, Goomba Storm, is such a blast to use. Just tapping away at the screen like a madman to see how many Goombas I can get in quick succession. Attacks like these make it feel like I'm playing a WarioWare minigame. And once all the Goombas are lit on fire, they come crashing down one by one on the enemy of your choosing while Bowser grins sadistically in the background. Sick freak. Getting lucky strikes on these multi-hit type attacks are always so fun too. Sometimes if you get multiple in a row, you just hear the unique sound effect playing over and over, and it's great. This isn't unique to Goomba Bros really, but this attack amongst a few others from Inside Story usually gave me more lucky strikes than others. Music to my ears. Balloon Blast is one of those moves where the build-up for the finisher carries it pretty hard for me, because in theory, the devs could have made this move a lot more boring where the giant balloon explodes just on its own one time and that's the end of it. But these guys made it to where it's a bunch of smaller balloons doing a bunch of mini explosions over and over across multiple enemies. It's nice how Mario and Luigi do flips at the apex of each jump too instead of just standard jumping. Not sure if this was intentional, but the balloon design looks incredibly similar to the Bowser's Inside Story Super Bouncer. If that was intentional, that's a cute little callback. Chopper Bros and Knockback Bros are without a doubt the most broken Bros attacks in the original version of Superstar Saga. The original advanced versions were the original infinite Mario and Luigi moves if your input timing was good enough. These moves got hard nerfed in the remake for those exact reasons, which is pretty fair to be honest. The game would have been way too easy for veteran players if it was kept the same. But not even including the infinite versions, the original versions just felt a lot more fluid to me, especially Chopper Bros. Regular Chopper Bros in the remake felt like it was going in slow-mo and the finishing spin with Mario didn't feel as impactful to me. I feel like the change in sound effects played a big part in this too. Knockback Bros in the remake definitely had a more epic finisher, but overall I still enjoyed using the original more. Very amazing Bros attacks, but the original versions of them are why they're this high for me. If there was a universe where the remake was the only version, then these would probably be lower on the list. I feel like Mighty Meteor is one of those attacks that more people should bring up when having those very important Sephiroth versus the Mario Bros debates. In all seriousness, this attack was way cooler to me than the previous because, I mean, it's a meteor. Yeah, it works the same as Smash Egg where you're hitting it back and forth until an item comes out, but it's a meteor. These plumber men are hitting a meteor with their hammers using enough force to break it into tiny pieces. That's just awesome. Being able to move the brothers and using the hammer to break it adds a lot for me as well. Like I said earlier, the original standing portion for Smash Eggs is why it didn't really hit for me. The attack felt very lifeless because of that, whereas Mighty Meteor does the exact opposite, hence why I'm giving it its praises at a much higher spot. On the topic of things going into space, Rocket Blast is a great one. The way it does its little countdown at the start, one of the bros struggling for dear life once you make initial impact, and having to frantically aim the rocket into your enemies at the end or else you'll just fly off into the side of the screen. The little electric sparks coming from the rocket short-circuiting is a nice touch too. Makes the immediate situation feel more urgent, like you gotta get rid of this rocket as fast as possible or else something bad will happen. Obviously you won't actually take damage from it, but it's still a bit of extra intensity that I enjoy. Mario and Luigi riding on a skateboard, Jetboard Dash had me sold immediately. This is easily my favorite attack when it comes to the ones with the more simple input combos. Luigi being the one to rev up the engine on the board is what sells it for me. I know for a fact every kid out there who grew up with a skateboard tried riding it on their stomach at least once in their life. If you say no, I don't believe you. The slow-mo effect when Mario makes contact with his hammer is always a plus. Never get tired of the slow-mo. And just like Luiginary Ball, this was one of the standard Bros attacks from Dream Team that got its own official art. I will never get over how good Dream Team's official art style looks, by the way. Absolutely adore the watercolor-esque effects and the blue outer strokes they use. Chef's kiss. Luiginary Ball being the OG Luiginary attack helps out its placing for sure. It's one of those attacks that used motion controls for the 3DS really well in my opinion. Sometimes the motion controls in Dream Team could feel a tad wonky at times, especially during the giant Z-Keeper fight, but Luiginary Ball is able to keep things consistent throughout. It's one of the few early game attacks that still feels valuable at all points in the story, which is something I value greatly. And this is because it's got some of the most reliable AoE damage out of any attack in the game and costs the least amount of BP for the Luiginary attacks. The attack having official art is a nice plus for me too. Maybe that's not the best reasoning in the world, but whenever games have official art for certain things like characters, environments, or abilities, said art will sometimes make me enjoy it more once I'm actually experiencing it in-game. Surely I'm not alone in that sentiment, right? Broggy Bonker is arguably the most iconic special attack from Bowser's Inside Story. I think the reason so many folks like it is because it's one of those attacks that you're consistently working towards obtaining throughout the majority of your playtime as Bowser, every now and then helping the little Blitty kitties from danger and reuniting them with their big brother Broggy. Then you can finally use Broggy as part of your own arsenal as Bowser's strongest special attack in the game in terms of damage output. Plus, Broggy is one of the only special attacks in the entire series that allows you to summon an NPC that is completely unique to the Mario and Luigi series. The way Broggy slams into the enemies, it's so cool, followed by the little blitties following suit, the last one taking its sweet time, it never gets old to me. This is another one of those attacks where getting lucky hits on feels so good. Only thing I wish could have been a bit better was the inputs to pull the attack off. You're kind of just dragging the stylus back and forth really fast and don't need to be super precise with it. Using trio attacks are some of my favorite parts of Paper Jam. Despite me not being super keen on the game as a whole, the trio attacks definitely make up a lot of the good parts for me. I just love how you flatten the enemies into paper with a giant hammer and take them into these unique pocket dimensions to perform some of the wackiest attacks in Mario and Luigi. Every single one feels like a Mario Party minigame. Like, who would have thought that having these guys just playing racquetball with their enemies' bodies would have been so fun? It's definitely the most basic of the trio attacks, hence why it's at the spot, but still very fun to use. I'm extra biased on this one as well, as someone who's played quite a bit of racquetball, pickleball, and ping pong in his lifetime. Some may say those aren't real sports, and to that, I say, shut up. I wouldn't be surprised if I get flamed for having Magikoopa Mob above Broggy Bonker, but I genuinely do like using this move more when it comes to Bowser's special attacks. It's a nice reminder to us that Bowser can actually use a bit of sorcery on his own, since he's throwing conjured fire from his hand into the Magikoopa lineup. Sucks how the Inside Story remake changed it to him just breathing fire now. Not sure what the purpose of that was, to be honest. I really wish more games would showcase Bowser's abilities in this regard, because we hardly see it anymore. This game and Galaxy 1, when he summons lightnings, are two of the bigger examples I can think of off the top of my head. The tracing mechanic is nice as well, always doing different orders each time too, so you have to be relatively precise with your tracing. I love magic, and I love this attack. Luiginary Hammer, dude, come on. Using a hammer made up entirely of Luigi's, it's so fun. Having to use the circle pad and spamming B is a really good input setup. Obviously, you want to have as many of Luigi's as possible for maximum damage, but you gotta make sure your circle pad precision is good enough or else the attack will fail altogether. It's not necessarily as reliable as Luiginary Ball when it comes to AoE damage, but it definitely feels better than Luiginary Stack. You're given more room to decide how exactly your damage will be spread to once the hammer is complete, which I also like a lot. The setup for the attack itself is the best part for me though, no doubt. Love seeing Mario try to struggle to keep this giant concoction in the air. Strong ass motherfucker right there. Trio Whirligig is the pinnacle of drill-based Mario and Luigi special attacks. The way the three bros form their own little helicopter formation with Paper Mario serving as the blade, the main portions of the attack to get all the stacks together is a little slow, but the view itself is still nice because of how unbelievably high up in the air you are. This part does remind me of Paratroopa Plunge from Mario Party 4, which is one of my favorite Mario Party games. I know it sounds like I'm making a lot of Mario Party comparisons in this video, but I can't really help it. It just seems almost blatant that the devs took inspiration from Mario Party minigames for the newer game special attacks. And of course, the finisher is incredibly satisfying visually. Drilling so fast that sparks and fire appear, lovely eye candy. The hand abilities are some of my favorite abilities in Mario Luigi, so by default, I gotta have Fire Bros and Thunder Bros on the higher end of this list. I know Mario having fire powers isn't really anything new, it's literally one of his oldest powers, but for some unexplained reason, I like how he's able to conjure it naturally after learning the technique from an ancient deity, whenever he wants without needing to collect a power-up over and over after taking damage. The base Fire Bros attack isn't anything super crazy, but I love the advanced version. Seeing the Fireball grow more and more over time, kind of like mixed flowers once it's fully complete. Mario spiking that shit down like a volleyball. Oh my god, I love it. This is another set of Bros attacks that I feel like was improved for me once the remake came out, because the original had you hammering each Fireball individually with Luigi, whereas the remake has you hammer one big one that does multiple hits. But Thunder Bros is still my overall favorite moveset between the two. It's actually kind of insane to me how we haven't gotten more lightning-based powers for either of the Mario Bros in other games. So Superstar Saga having this power and it being attached to Luigi at that makes me appreciate it that much more. Thunder Bros improves too, with the main version having a plasma-like explosion at the end, while the advanced/super version has Luigi striking the enemy with multiple purple lightning strikes. I'd be so happy if the hand powers were brought back in Brothership. I miss them so much. I know I said Cyclone Bros was a nice way to experience a Beyblade-like attack, but Luiginary Wall is the better way to experience this. Special attack-wise, that is. You're constantly hitting a single dreamy Luigi back and forth while he swings his hammer into enemies, though you gotta be watchful with how you aim him, because he could either slip past you or go outside the wall due to the other Luigis disappearing slowly whenever the hammering one knocks into them. But if you're able to keep it going long enough, the wall of Luigis will stack on top of each other and come timbering down to deal even more damage. They look so happy to be falling down like this too. It's hilarious. Trio Meteor feels like Cannonball Chuck on mega steroids. Now these guys are controlling meteors to destroy their foes. Well, I guess technically these meteors might be lighter since they're potentially made of cardboard, but the impact still speaks for itself considering it's the last trio attack in the game. The bros having their own color-coded meteors to match is a nice touch, but what I love the most is the giant meteor the three of them ride together with the sky changing from blue to red to add to the attack's intensity, finishing everything off with the platform the enemy stands on being completely destroyed while the bros fly off in a Paper Mario airplane. This is what we call art right there, boys.
Because my art is an explosion!
The only thing that can top Fire Bros for fire-related special attacks is a fire-based attack with more Luigis that I can count. The motion for this attack never gets old. It's like a mixture of doing a setup for volleyball while doing a relay race. And if there's one thing about me, is Haikyuu has made me like volleyball a lot more than I thought was humanly possible. The attack getting faster and faster, needing to know if it's going to be set to Mario or the Luigi so you can unleash a barrage of fireballs on your enemies at the end. The sound effects for this attack are really nice in the ears for me too, especially whenever the Luigis bounce more fire up in the air. If these guys created lightning balls instead and kept the same motion, this might have been in the top 5, I'm not gonna lie. They're still happy with this spot though. Part of me feels weird having Falling Star so much higher than Mixed Flowers because realistically the attacks are incredibly similar in terms of build-up, though this move does feel more balanced because you can't spam the buttons as fast and it only goes for a single enemy. I kind of like that though because the attack still feels very strong without feeling too overly broken. If Falling Star was AoE, you could just use it against the Dark Star core and nothing else and win super quick. Feels cool that Starlo was actually involved in a special attack for once too. She's decent comedic relief during the Mario and Luigi adventures, but did very little hands-on work, so this was a nice change of pace. Having to aim back at the big star while spamming adds a bit of an extra challenge too. It can be pretty easy to whiff sometimes if that thing is moving diagonally, at least in the original version. I'm confident with it being at number 9. Star Rocket being Luigi's ultimate attack in Dream Team definitely earns his title as his ultimate non-Luiginary move. This attack's relatively similar to Falling Star, but the bros riding on the star adds more fun to the attack for me. It outweighs the simplicity of getting the attack going forward. The toe controls are unbelievably forgiving with this move because the star you're riding on is the size of Texas, so collecting the little stars feels really easy even when you're starting to speed up. But in my opinion, the finishing blow hard beats out Falling Star. The way the little stars orbit around the brothers as if they're planets themselves, ending with the stars drilling into the enemy like rapid gunfire, it's so incredibly satisfying. But not quite as satisfying as the Luiginary Typhoon, the ultimate Luiginary attack. I just love how you can constantly see the uncomfortable pained faces of the enemies whenever they're stuck inside this tornado, while the beautiful hammer sound effect bonks the hell out of them over and over again. All the Luigis look so happy, and I'm sure Mario cheering them on to do their best is the reason for this. Tornado-based attacks are just cool to me in general, to be honest. Anytime I play a Kirby game that has tornado in it, I try to use it as much as humanly possible. It's weird because I despise tornadoes and heavy winds in real life, but I love them in video games. Perhaps it's one of those things where I get some sick kick out of being able to control something I fear? I don't know. With all the hell those padded out Paper Toads mission put me through in Paper Jam, these guys sure can put a cool special attack together. It relies almost entirely on the circle pad, with any of the movements at your disposal being possible with how the trails twist and turn. The controls in this move can be a little tricky and practically all or nothing because if you fall off the trail you do no damage, but pulling it off feels amazing. The bros spinning into a wheel at incredible speed. If Luiginary Ball was able to have the same level of intensity as well as the option to use the circle pad to move, then these two attacks probably would have been swapped on my list. It sucks how this move is probably one that can never be brought back because of the context of the game it originated in, but I suppose that makes it a bit more special in a sense. Trio Kite may be one of the earliest trio attacks we get in the game, but it's without a doubt my favorite special attack in the series that's mainly centered around mashing. The enemy in question turns into a kite while the bros run with a level of intensity that I've yet to see matched in any Mario game. These guys look like they're running on peak adrenaline during this attack. Then to finish things off, Paper Mario just casually climbs the kite string and slams the enemy into the ground with his hammer. The background for this attack looks great too. Very happy scenery to match with flying a kite being a nice leisurely activity you do in the park or something. In terms of single target attacks, this is one of the best in Paper Jam in my opinion when it comes to saving BP and dealing out solid damage. My favorite trio attack in the game is Trio Shuriken. Stellar visuals for its unique pocket dimension of a Japanese themed dojo to fit with the attack itself, but the only trio attack in the game that's dependent on the amount of Paper Mario stacks you have prior to using it, so extra preparedness is rewarded when using this attack off rip. With the final blow turning Paper Mario into a giant shuriken that opens the sliding doors of the dojo once it hits the enemy, showing a beautiful full moon scenery. And just like Jetboard Dash and Luiginary Ball, this move got some amazing official art for it. Am I crazy, or did these guys use PD Piranha's render from Mario's Super Sluggers for that piece on the top left? That's hilarious if true. Zegg felt like it was a bit of a pain in the ass to actually obtain because you had to free every single pillow in the game, optional ones included. Some of those little freaks were pretty hidden too. But the long mission was well worth the reward in my opinion. Just like Broggy Bonker, it's one of those special attacks that spawns an NPC unique to the Mario and Luigi games. The Z-Keeper of all characters, Pillow Island's guardian who helped take down Intasma thousands of years before the game's events. He's got a hilarious personality too, putting on a front of being this overly protective official or guardian, but once you beat him in the giant Luigi fight, he starts talking like he belongs to Gamma Delta Alpha. The bros need to constantly smack the Z-Egg with their hammers over time while you use the circle pad to line up the Z-Keeper in the background, ending the attack with both bros using the hammers together, creating a massive rainbow-colored explosion. I love the way the two of them float down with angry expressions on their faces with what I can only assume is yellow stardust around their bodies. Almost makes them feel like godlike beings. Which, to be fair, they kind of are. But it's nice that there's a visual cue around them to help evoke that these guys really are on a different level. As much as I love the Mario bros looking badass, sometimes them being silly little guys with how they attack their foes can edge out those badass attacks. Snack Basket is one of those rare instances for me. Besides Broggy Bonker, I'd say this is also the most iconic special attack from Bowser's Inside Story. Luigi just stuffing his face with sugar and turning into this adorable abomination. Look at this fat bastard. If they made beanbags out of this version of Luigi, I'd buy it. They'd also be vintage in a sense because this big-ass Luigi only appeared in Inside Story. Mario picking him up using every fiber of his being, followed by Luigi doing a flip in midair into a belly flop on the ground to do massive damage to all grounded enemies. That's the only small disadvantage to this attack in terms of versatility. Airborne / high up enemies can't take damage from it. But that's not enough for me to drop this attack below top 2 because everything else about it is amazing. It's the only attack in the game that's absolutely required to use on a boss for story progression too. Usually I'm not a huge fan of when RPGs do this. I went on record saying the way Sticker Star and Color Splash do that wasn't the most fun in the world for me, but with how hilarious and fun Snack Basket is to use, that typical annoyance cancels out for me. Yet it's not quite as great for me as this one.
Preparing the Krabby Patty!
Mega Thwonk is the peak of Mario and Luigi special attacks. Dream Team's giant fights did an incredible job at not only giving Luigi more time to shine in a serious battle, but did wonders for his character development throughout the game. So the fact that Paper Jam brought back that part of Dream Team by allowing Luigi to turn into a giant again was an incredible surprise. The attack follows the path of needing to press B to match with giant Luigi's running while Mario rides on his hammer. Once that's done, Luigi smacks the fuck out of the foe with his hammer, allowing Mario to do his jumps in between with enough force to have the enemies bounce off the ground back into him multiple times. This attack's finisher is the best in the series as well. The final jump Mario does, just grinding them into the ground while he has the most pissed look on his face, it never gets old. This is another thing that's really underrated about the Dream Team and Paper Jam Bros attacks in my opinion. The bros are so expressive whenever they use these moves, mostly looking angry like they want to defeat these foes with every fiber of their being. We need more games where Mario and Luigi look pissed while fighting. They're fighting people that are preventing them from saving the world in every game. They deserve to look more pissed. It helps add a bit to the game's immersion, even if it's just slight. I will forever cherish this attack, and I would love to see if Brothership's Bros attacks can somehow one-up this one. But yeah, this is my ranking of every special attack from the Mario and Luigi games. The finishing moves in last place and Mega Thwonk in first. Actually, the finishing moves aren't technically special attacks. The all-knowing Mario Wiki says they are, so lick my grundle. This was a very productive use of my time. Huge thanks to my gold tier patrons, BFP4, Lunar, Izzy Torium, Draconis, and London Morse. You guys' support really means the world to me. But for now, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, take care. Bye-bye.